Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Black Magic here, and welcome to my first impressions video on the AMD FX 6300 CPU. Now, this video was originally going to be about 30 minutes long, but unfortunately my computer actually blue screened on me in the middle of rendering the video, and like a noob, I did not save my work, so the timeline was destroyed and all that kind of good shit. So I thought that in the interest of keeping things short and sweet, I would go ahead and edit the time down as much as I possibly can. And real quick, I want to let everyone know out there a few things, and the first thing is that this is more of a technical video about a processor and not a gameplay commentary like you guys are, normally used to seeing here on my channel. Second, I want to point out that the wallpaper you see on my desktop is not my everyday wallpaper. It's just a backdrop for the purposes of this video. I don't want you guys out there thinking that I'm full of myself or anything like that, so I just thought I'd clear the air on that subject. And with that said, let's go ahead and get into the benchmarking of the FX 6300. So the first thing I want to point out is that there are three windows you currently see going on the desktop right there, and that is because we're going to be using these three different pieces of software for the purposes of benchmarking the FX 6300. The first program is Speedfan, which if you didn't already know, Speedfan is a program that you can use to monitor the various pieces of hardware in your PC for their temperatures, but you can also set the case speed fans, or case fan speeds, however you'd like, and that kind of goes back to the name of Speedfan. But anyways, the only temperature that I'm going to be paying attention to here is the CPU temperature, which doesn't go up that high at this clock speed. The second program that I'm going to be using is CPU-Z, which gives you a more in-depth and detailed look at the processor besides the voltages and the clock speeds. Now, the reason I'm using CPU-Z and Speedfan as opposed to a program like Hardware Monitor is because these two pieces of software are just the two that I've been using for the past couple of years, and it's just a lot easier for me to work with these programs seeing as I've had more experience with them and less experience with a program like Hardware Monitor, even though they are somewhat kind of different. Finally, the third program is our benchmarking tool that we'll be using today, and it is Passmark. Now, this program is one of the higher rated CPU benchmarking tools out there right now, and the user interface is pretty self-explanatory and easy to navigate. Passmark is going to run several different tests, but what we're going to want to pay attention to in this video is the score for the CPU itself. Okay, so now that we've run the benchmark for the first time, the score that we get with the standard 3.5 clock speed is 9,948.3. And that's a pretty decent score, seeing as the overall average that I've found online is about 9,400 to 9,900. It's not a bad score, and I'm sure it outperforms my old Phenom X4, but being the kind of person I am, I really want to try to push the CPU and see if I can get better results from overclocking it to about 4.3 gigahertz. So I'm going to go ahead and boot into the BIOS, change some numbers around, assure myself that the overclock is safe by running Prime 95 for about half an hour, and we will be back for the second installment of the benchmarking. Okay, so I ran Prime 95 for about 30 minutes, and it seems everything's running fine. So we're going to go ahead and get into the second benchmark of the FX 6300 at the clock speed of 4.3 gigahertz. Alright, and it looks like the score for the 4.3 overclock is going to be 11,853.3. And I've got to say that you do start to notice a difference after bumping it up about 800 megahertz or so. Now, this is the standard overclock that I've kept it for about 3 days or so at the time of making this video, and it is pretty stable. I ran Prime 95 for about 4 to 5 hours previously when I had it clocked to 4.3, and no core failures, no blue screens or anything like that. So we were good to go. So I didn't originally plan on doing this, but I think once again for the purposes of this video and this video alone, I'm gonna overclock it a bit higher and see what we can get out of 4.5 gigahertz. So we're gonna go an entire 1000 megahertz above the standard clock speed. So give me just a second and we'll be right back with that. Alright, so now as you see, we're running the FX 6300 at a 4.5 overclock from its stock speed of 3.5. And right off the bat, I can tell you right now that this is not an overclock I plan on keeping. The first time I ran Prime 95, the computer crashed right from the get-go, so I had to go into the BIOS again, lower the voltages a little bit, and now it's a little bit more stable, but the temperatures do get a little too high for my taste, so that's a big reason that I'll be bumping it back to 4.3 as opposed to keeping it at 4.5. Now we got the last test running right now, and now we have our score, and it is 12,000 28,690, and that's a difference of about 2750 from the stock score. Now, this is a great score, it seems stable, and I do like the fact that it's fairly easy to accomplish as far as the overclocking goes, but that once again, the downside for me is the high temperatures. Now, I'm sure if I read up on it and put the time into it, I could find myself wanting a 4.5 clock speed, but I'm just fine where I am with the 4.3. Okay, so right now we're gonna go ahead and play a little bit of Skyrim to show you guys how it looks on the PC, and we are at ultra settings, meaning that everything is pretty much maxed out right now, and I get an average of about 60 to 62 frames per second. Now, I know that in the upper right hand corner it says 30, but that's actually the recording speed right now. I do assure you that I'm getting 60 plus frames per second. Now, when it comes to Battlefield 4, I normally keep it on a custom setting, putting most of the options on high, while there are a few things disabled or even on medium, and I normally get anywhere between 70 and 90 frames per second, which isn't all that bad considering I was coming from about 40 to 55 frames per second with an almost 4-year-old quad-core processor. So my first impressions, I love this processor, the FX 6300, and I would highly recommend it to anyone with an aging CPU that would either like to get more out of their games or just have a PC that performs like a champ. It's cut video rendering time down for me by about 10 to 15 minutes, and the overall navigation through Windows 7 seems a lot more responsive and snappy. If I had to rate this CPU, I would give it about an 8.7 out of 10, mostly for the ease of overclocking ability and its impact on the more CPU intensive games like Battlefield and Skyrim. Anyways guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed my first impressions of the FX 6300. Like I said in the beginning of the video, if you guys have any questions about this processor at all, or just any questions about anything I've said throughout the entire video, do not be afraid. Leave me a comment in the comment section down below. Ask me the question, and I will eventually get back to you, probably within a 24 to 48 hour time limit, depending on how busy I am. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Blackmagic, Steam Blackmagic. Once again, thank you guys very much for checking out this video, and I will catch you in the next one.